even really know where to start. I kind of just wanted to come on and talk a little bit. I watched another creator that I watch all the time, um, who shares his own journey with consciousness and with awakening. And he was expressing himself in a way that for a lot of people would cause alarm, like this is a bad kind of ending that he's talking about, right? Like the phrasing was bringing up a lot of the despair that also kind of comes along with this process of individuation. When we start waking up and facing our patterns and our loops and setting boundaries and feeling that dissolution of self, of these identities that are no longer serving us, people start falling away, and that often leads to feeling like there is difficulty in being able to reconnect with the world. There's a lot of the process of pursuing source and enlightenment that leads you feeling apart. And this is like, pursuing wealth to the point that you have it, and then finding out that once you're at the top of that and you have all of the power. And there are a lot of people, like Will Smith has a really good interview, and I can't remember exactly who he was talking with, whether it was like on a podcast or on a late night talk show, but he talks about how he got up there, he got everything he wanted, and then found that same emptiness. It's kind of, we have this pursuit of uniqueness, and individuation is still trying to set ourselves apart. That is all still ego. Right? Ego wants to believe that it is special because it feels that spark of source within us that is more, that essence of love within us that is very vibrant, very alive, and it wants to feel included in that and believes it is not. Right? So it goes through this exploration of uniqueness, and a lot of spirituality is still in pursuit of that. I would argue that if there is an ing at the end of a word, that is still ego, because that is what we're here to be. We are source in form, in an interface, having a physical expression. That is individuation. But you get to the point where you are so unique, so wealthy, you are so unique that all there is you and source. And when you get to that, all there is you and source, and you kind of touch that unity consciousness, that's where that loneliness comes from, because you reach this understanding that when you are all, that actually reduces experience, because there's no surprise, there's no uniqueness there's no individuation there. Everything is just known. And in this body, this fractal emanation of source, that loneliness, I think, is really just an awareness that isn't the point of being in form. We are here to connect with the physical experience, to connect with what is happening in our body and the world around us, while being connected to source and understanding that what is happening for us, to us, and through us is occurring in others, just disguised as nuance. Being able to tap into source, into form, allows us to relate compassionately to others and to make those choices, right? We're here to have choice. That is the whole point of this, because creation cannot be born from allness. when all is one, when there's omnipotence, omniscience, all of that, creation isn't born anymore. It all just is. And that leads me to, those considerations of the beginning. We all go back to like that big bang, that moment, that the thought and the breath. And I have been hung up on that for quite a while, several months. Trying to picture that moment, because thought rose before breath, right? Thought rose before words spoke. But there would have been in that pause between, because even in our brains, there is a pause between the thought forming and the word coming out of the mouth. In that pause would have been the birth of feeling. That awareness of this thought is doing something, it is expressing, it is expanding, something is happening. If there was a first of that, the very first time that happened would have created awe, surprise, wonder, all of the emotions. Any emotion you can feel would have risen in that pause, in the moment that I am became the ellipses at the end. I am being, I am doing, I am expressing, all of the ings that came out in the word. That was where we were born, right? Because if everything rose from that moment and everything became one, then it would just create stasis. Without polarity, without density, without contrast, there is no meaning. So the I am just stops. There's nowhere to go with that. And so my next train of thought is, how lonely would that be? How boring would that be, right? So on the other side of awe and wonder at self-discovery is this: I am lonely without a witness. I am bored without creation. And so I think the whole point of this, really, to get, to kind of jump ahead a little bit, your minds can do everything with that visual and that thought, and it will. So I don't really need to go a whole lot into that, but that takes me to that being the point of all of this, right? Why then would Source divide itself into people and have these experiences? Why would we descend into form to experience contrast and density? Because I am lonely and I am bored and I want to experience creation. I want to have those feelings of awe and wonder and inspiration again. And that means there has to be a witness, which is why we have that strive to connect, right? The whole point is to discover ourselves, to have those experiences, the good and the bad, so that we create the world that we want to create, so that we create new forms, so that things keep flowing. Because if Source wanted stillness, it wouldn't have ever emanated, it wouldn't have ever fractured. So the realization that that is the point, that I am here to be in body, as above, so below, as within, so without, right? I am here for those experiences, including that loneliness and that individuation and that realization that if I am all spiritual and all lost in that oneness, then I am missing the right here, and I am missing the return to the body. We have to get to that point, that stripping away that dissolution, in order to realize the true value in it, right? Like you get to where it's difficult to talk to people and you're in pursuit of joy because you hear everybody talk about that, and you want those things. Joy feels good, and you pursue the spirit because things do get easier, but then it gets harder to talk to people who aren't evolving with you. When you start wanting to pursue and get into the shadow because you know that that is where the solution, that is an end to your suffering and a way to experience greater joy, you want to get to that faster. And other people who haven't faced their shadows yet don't. They're still dealing with the fear of facing it, and that can create a great deal of separation, and it can create a great deal of loftiness. Like, the things that I am considering and thinking about are more than yours. That creates, like, that's really the other side, like, of where you get to with the wealth, right? Like, you get so spiritual that now these other things feel beneath you. But that is a forgetting of what the body is. That is a forgetting of what other people are. Like, we're not piloting an empty vessel. This isn't a machine. It's an interface, but it is also alive. Every single cell in our body is an individuated organism, consciousness. They live. It isn't hollow. It is a whole collective of mini me's having their own experiences in a universe that they exist in, as above, so below. And so in those moments where I have that separation and I don't feel like I've got the ability to connect to other people, I drop back into my body and I think about those little conscious critters and what they are here to also experience, right? And that's where I take care of my health. I'm more careful. I don't go so far as to do the whole vegan thing. I still like my little comfort habits. I believe in feeding my inner child too. So if I want a chalky milkshake, I go get a chalky milkshake. I don't beat myself up over it. I don't beat myself up over feeling like it's difficult to connect with just anybody. I don't always want to talk sports and weather, and that's okay. It's also good for me to drop into that and realize that that is a part of being here and it's fun. Why would I deny myself something that is fun when just because I have awareness, right? If I understand that things are rigged and that there are psyops everywhere and that they are programming us and controlling us, that's awesome to know. But it doesn't mean that I can't participate back in it and still harvest my joy out of it. It doesn't mean that I can't still enjoy hanging out and watching the Super Bowl. And it doesn't mean that I can't watch the way people are having to cope with their environments, right? Just because they are in a perspective that is still asleep to what it's really doing doesn't mean I can't still be in it with them. I just can look at it through my lens and go, all right, I don't have to play the psyops part of the game, but I can still enjoy the connection with the people around me who are. And when I need to say something to help them, I can. I don't need to browbeat them with it, right? I don't have to play disconnect just because I'm spiritual. I don't have to run around this world and believe that I am some loftier creature just because I'm able to see things a little bit differently. That is my ego pursuing uniqueness. That is my ego wanting to believe that being chosen means that somehow now I am going to get preferential treatment. That preferential treatment comes from me, because I am source expressing itself. It isn't something out here that is going to express preferential treatment for me in divine fashion more than it comes from me myself. It'll meet me out here as I apply it to myself. And that was what that loneliness, that I am now so ascended that the things that I think about and concern myself with are beyond others. That's what that led me to. And and it's leading me back into the world. Like now I am at a point where providing that care for myself and being able to be okay with being disconnected from others and realizing that it is still important for me to come back out of the lake is kind of, I'm losing my train of thought. So I know I'm rambling and thought jumping. That's, my brain doesn't operate linearly. So thank you for following along with it as it's scrambling again, because now it's pulling up the Narcissus myth, which a lot of people don't understand either. Narcissus didn't have a God complex. Narcissus was not someone who went, I am so love deprived and no one will love me correctly, so I'm going to go sit by this lake, think about things, and then I'm going to go back into the world and use that to control people from my vanity. That isn't what the story says. The story says that Narcissus went to a lake, looked at his own reflection, and never came back out again. So if you leave it there and treat it like he was in love with his face and his own beauty, then you're missing the point of what it is. Water represents emotions and depth and spirit. Narcissus was looking for love and connection in the world, and he turned to spirit when he couldn't find it. And he looked so deeply into himself, into his shadow, into what he found there, that he experienced the disconnect from others and couldn't ever come back out again. And that is one of the dangers of awakening, right? That's the spiritual bypassing, that's spiritual egoism, right? But you're still the ego. You cannot get away from being ego in form. It just changes its face, right? But it is all ego. That the pursuit of spirit isn't trying to get rid of these aspects of self. It is being able to recognize that the good and the bad live within us, and that in any moment we can be presented with a choice that changes everything. Being able to realize that things change and that they flow, and that this is about having the experience and making choices that are most beneficial for us is the whole point. Connecting with spirit should not pull us away from people just for a time, because you have to get really comfortable with yourself in your own skin and the voices that are occurring within you, which some of them come from your cells. If your brain is made up of cells, some of those thoughts are the voices of your collective. And so you're hearing your cells and believing that they define you. You hear spirit and believe that that's all it is. It's both and. All and nothing. Individual and collective. We're not supposed to get so lost in any one direction that we can't fluidly swing. And that was really kind of what that guy's post really got me thinking about. Because it is really hard to come back from that. It is really hard to feel like you can walk around and worry about fashion trends when you have faced your innermost demons. It is really, really hard to talk about celebrity gossip when you've met source within yourself. But that doesn't, to let that get to the point that it becomes a burden of your calling and feeling like a curse. And it does. I've referred to it as that myself. Like there is a burden of the calling, and that is that you have to be able to walk in both worlds. And that means you have to deal with the gravity of grief and despair with the same grace as you deal with joy and peace and happiness. That you are able to walk as a calm center through all of those storms, through those moments when you are reaping the benefits of solitude while also experiencing the grief of disconnection. Because then when you are in the middle of the crowd, you're going to be experiencing the discomfort of being lost in a collective while craving the benefits of individuation and isolation. Recognizing the pendulum and that it swings and being able to return to center. That is the point, right? Because ego is going to swing us. That's what it's here for, to present us with choices so that we have the opportunity to align with what we want to define ourselves by in this experience. And if your higher self helped shape this for you, then you can trust yourself to have the experience you came here for. And that means we don't have to cling on to the emotions as an identity, as a state, and that a flow. And that if I am uncomfortable in this, then that is where the learning is happening. And I'm supposed to lean into that instead of running from it and just becoming the mood, right? The mood is the guide. Do I lean in here? Or do I need to redirect? But don't get lost. And don't think it's the end. What I want you to get out of this more than anything is that as you are going through this awakening, as you are watching the collective struggle, as you are feeling completely disconnected, do not think that it ends there. Joy is your anchor. Find the joy. Find the joy in the experience wherever it can meet you. Sometimes it might just be, you know what, right this moment, this coffee tastes really good. Right in this moment, I am happy, I am warm. Hang on to those little moments when you feel disconnected and isolated and starving for it. If you start applying that to people, and looking, instead of for the joy you expect, the way they're going to treat you and receive you, start looking for the ways that they express your joy. Look for the ways that they bring you joy in the little unexpected ways. And if you stop trying to frame it based off of your own need, because your needs get met by you within. If you stop looking at the world to meet those needs for you, which is what we're learning to do. That's what that part is for, is we are here to meet the world, not make the world meet us. So even in that loneliness, I have the ability to look at other people and I can choose to look at how they're disappointing my expectations. Or I can choose to let go of my expectations and look for the ways that they're surprising me. I like looking at the world for surprise a lot better. I look for the gift because they're always there. We're just very, very practiced at looking for the consequence, looking for the proof of negative difference instead of positive connection and alignment. I've been reflecting on that for a few days and have been putting off doing a video because I just have been really balking at doing any videos where I am talking myself because I know I ramble and I thought stream. It's the way I think. And not everybody can keep up with that, and I'm very used to that. That is, one of my elements that I deal with in all of this, and a great source of where this is when I feel like I can't talk to people in the ways that I talk, that creates that disconnect for me. And so I use the not doing the videos, not being on camera, not been running from that just because I didn't want to face that in myself, even though I knew the whole time. So that's why that video hit me the way it was, because I know I'm still running from myself. And it's really more of realizing for me that I know what I am. I know how to find it in the things around me now, and so it isn't the lack of knowing, it's the lack of, oh, how do I phrase this? Like, I know that what I'm avoiding is the visibility, the being seen, because being seen stirs up that concern that I have. Like, we want to be seen, but deep inside I don't, because I avoid it because of the risk, right? Because once you're seen, that invites the negative. I'm not even really worried about that anymore either. So even that is just a bullshit excuse that my mind uses to keep me small, to keep me from doing what would really make me happy, and that is to actually embody and be what I am without worry or concern. So here I am sitting down, finally recording it, because I made that commitment to myself, because I do believe what I'm saying to you, that the disconnect is within us, and we're supposed to experience that. You experience both sides of the pendulum swing so that you learn how to return to the center, so that you learn how to return to the access. But we're here to swing on the pendulum. We came here to play on the playground. So when I realize that every experience, even the negative ones, even the hard ones, even my own resistance and my own self-sabotaging to doing what I know I need to do, like, it serves that experience because it is informing me of my own truth. So if you are going through those phases, those stages of feeling like your calling is a burden or a curse, or the feeling like you're not going to be able to return back into the world, that is still your ego expressing itself. Love it, nurture it, and remind it of what you are. And keep meeting yourself where you are. It's not about the world meeting you or anybody else outside of you meeting you. It's, will you rise to meet yourself? Right? The spiritual community tells you to go out into the world and follow what rises to meet you. You have to rise to meet you first. Which means even in those moments where it's hard and the disconnect is heavy, or there's some contextual situation, some nuance that rises up in your world to challenge or distract you, you have to rise to meet you. And that can only be done inside. That's all in how you talk to yourself and what you are telling yourself about what you want, are capable of, and deserve. So don't get lost. It gets better. And you will find people. They're everywhere. You just have to stop looking for the difference and the ways that you're terminally unique. Anyway, I love you. Thanks for listening to me ramble. I needed to get those thoughts out of my brain so they would stop swirling around. If you have any questions, comments, please comment below. I love the discussion, but that requires you to respond and engage with content. So like, follow, and enjoy.